That's right. We're back. It's the Survivor Worldwide crew here on Reality Pop, and we're talking about a new season of Survivor, Riley. Finally, after so many months of not being able to see Survivor, Survivor South Africa is upon us, and we will have Immunity Island premiere. I believe it's on the 3rd of June, so not that long to go now. Riley, how excited are you about this?
Oh, so bloody excited, Chris. It's going to be so much fun just to have some more Survivor on the screen. And actually, it seems like there's a lot of entertaining characters here. And I don't really know how they're going to go, what to expect. It seems like it'll hopefully be a very strategic-driven season. So just to see it play out. I mean, it's been so long since our last season of Survivor. It was Winners at War back at the beginning of 2020. So, you know, almost a year and a half now without Survivor. So just get some back in our screen will be so good. And I'm really hoping it's going to be a good season. And fingers crossed with this cast it will be.
Yeah, 100%. Myself and Riley, we've had a whole of 48 hours to digest and look at the bios for each one of these contestants who will be participating in Immunity Island. And we looked at the videos, and we have the impossible task here today of doing a cast assessment on these players and then also doing a draft pick at the same time, and to try and select who we think is going to win the ultimate prize of being the sole survivor and the R1 million that goes with it in Survivor South Africa. So I think Riley and myself, we had a bit of a chat prior to going live here. We're on the same page. We don't really know who's going to win this. It's really out in the air. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if me and Riley have completely different players as our number one picks for both the women and the men. And how this is going to work is we're going to have a wheel spin with both of our names. Whoever it lands on, that person will be able to choose if they want to select a man first or if they want to go second in the draft pick, and it will be a classic snake draft pick. So if Riley ends up saying he wants to go first and he picks a man, then I get the second man and the first woman and vice versa. So it'll be two people every time that the other person can select after that. So without further ado, Riley, the rules, is that clear to you? You're good to go?
Very clear. Let's get right into it.
All right, let's do the old spinneroo here. So let's get it going. Oh, it looks like it's going to be you, Riley. Pressing down on you.
Mate.
All right, what are you doing here? Are you going for the option to select a man first, or do you want to go second in this draft pick?
I think those fireworks made me feel like I've got to go first. So I think I'm going to take my first pick here, Chris. And with my first pick, I'm going to take someone that on Australian Survivor, we've had an escape room owner in the past, and they went home first. But I think an escape room owner in Survivor South Africa is going to win this year. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but Dino seems to have all the chops for a great Survivor player. He seems to be a massive fan of the show. He reminds me of someone like Mike, who has that really deep knowledge of the show, and he wants to succeed and make big moves as well. He was also talking about in his video that he wants to build a lot of relationships because he is a nice guy outside of the show, and you know, building those strong social bonds to hopefully get him far in the game. But he also did acknowledge that the game of Survivor, a lot of it comes down to luck, and that's, I think, something that a lot of players going into seasons like this, especially big fans, I don't think they factor in that. Whereas he's sort of recognizing that, okay, you know, you've really got to play around, and if you get lucky, you've really got to take that and ride that wave. If you get unlucky, you've got to try and scramble a little bit and see how you can get out of it. So, Dino, I'm really excited to see how he plays. If you're watching this, Dino, no pressure, mate. But hopefully he can pull it out for us. I'm really looking forward to seeing him on the island.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I will be honest, Dino was my second pick for the men. So you probably, if you picked the person who's number one, you would have lost him, but there is a chance you probably could have gotten him back if you didn't pick. And I don't think you would have picked the person that I'm going to pick in my first spot. So I do think you probably would have gotten Dino back as well in the second round. And my observations of Dino is similar to yourself. I think that Dino comes across as someone that is a massive fan of the show. He's watched Australian Survivor. Some of his favorite players are Luke Toki and Dave Ganut. So obviously, if you are that big of a fan and you watch all versions of the show, you could be pretty lethal in this game. But what I like about him is that he seems like a player who's not going to play at the front taking any of the hits. He sounds like he wants to play that second in charge game, get a person there that is a bigger person than him that can take the hits, a bigger personality, potentially who I'm going to choose as my number one pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he would go for someone like that to say, this is the person that I'll take go out there and he can take the bullets for me, and then I will weave and sort of bob and weave in the background and make some dealings as I need to go. I feel like he's very socially aware. He understands what his weaknesses and strengths are, and he also doesn't look like the most physically dominant person out there. So I don't think he's going to be seen as a big threat right off the start, but he doesn't look unfit. So he's he's going to be in that great middle ground of being able to sort of ride the wave here pre-merge. And also another thing I wanted to add with Dino is I liked his little bit about he's maybe not the most well-educated person out there, but he does have a master's when it comes to the hard knocks in life. And I think that having experience when it comes to just life in general, that's something that's going to help you when you're out there playing a game such as Survivor. So really good pick there from you as a first pick. Now, we're going into my first pick here for the draft, and who I'm going to go for is someone that this person is either going to go really far in the game and they're going to become like the next Luke Toki, the next David Gennard type of character on the season. I know those are big calls, so I'm hoping that I don't put a lot of pressure on this person going into the season, or they will flame out very early on and people are going to find their personality to be grating on them because he seems to be such a big character, and that is going to be Chappie. It's going to be Francois Chappie's Chapman. So I'm going to go and pull him in there as my first pick, and I could easily see him and Dino working together there in the early part of the game to try and I think that Dino's going to look for someone that needs to be a more dominant personality to him in the game. And I think that he could be that person. Now, Chappie's does look like someone who's really physical. He looks like he's going to bring a lot of physicality to the game. So I think that in the early stages of the game, he's not going to get picked off as someone that's not going to help them in challenges and things like that. So I think that he could really work his way in there. He also says that he wants to play a very hard game, which is kind of what we want to see from our players when they go out there. We want to see good TV, right? So all those things to me stands out as really positive. Like I said, it could go either way for him here. I like the fact that he says that, a lot of people try and put him in a box, but he is the box. So I really think that we're going to see someone here that's going to try and play a cutthroat game, someone that's going to go out there and try and find idols. And I think if he's on the immunity island, we're in for some really good TV.
Yeah, to make a Australian Survivor comparison, I kind of got the feeling he's kind of like a Zach. I don't know how I got that feeling, but I feel as though it just comes across as he's very confident and wanting to lead the tribe. And I feel like that could rub some people the wrong way. And yes, he's strong in challenges, but in my opinion, I had Chappie quite low on my list. And I just feel like he's possibly going to be a pre-merger that's not going to last the whole time. He'll be kept around for the early game, I think. But then after a swap, if someone wants to make a big move, I think someone might get rid of him before the merge just so he can't go on an immunity challenge streak like that. And I think, especially coming off the back of Island of Secrets, I'm worried to see how people play after seeing Rob play such a dominant game. So I think the big guys are going to get knocked off at the beginning, which could be worrying for someone like Chappies or someone like maybe Anella, who we'll discuss later down the track. These big guys and also playing that leadership role as well, I think that would be some harmful for them. And I don't know how people are going to approach that in the season, but I could see those guys going very early in the game.
No, 100%. And like I said, I mean, with him, I'm going all in and hoping that it's going to be the latter of those two things and he actually goes deep in the season, because I think that if players don't take him out early on in the game, he could be a very big player that could do a lot of things. And I think that he's going to go balls to the wall and bring exciting TV. So I hope that he stays in the game very long, and I hope that he aligns with someone like a Dino or some other people that potentially don't want to take the hits, and they look like or they look at using him as that shield in front of them that will take the hits as they make the moves in the game. Now, we're going to go into the third pick here, and you didn't expect me to pick Chappies here in the first place for the men, and I definitely think you're not going to expect me to pick this person here in the first place. In fact, coming into this whole thing, I didn't think I was going to pick her as my first choice because I don't feel like I've got that much in common in regards to her being a vegan, being a yogi, but I am going to go for Anisu, and I can't pronounce the last name. I think it's Mbizvu, but it's Anisu. She's going to be my first pick here. The reason I'm picking her is because she doesn't come across as being like the ultimate fan of the show or anything like that, but she does seem to be quite grounded, and she seems to be someone that knows herself and her own strength really well. She, again, they're making a big thing of yoga this season. So her and I believe it's Waradu is the other person here that also has experience in yoga. But between the two of them, I feel like she comes across as a bit more grounded. She doesn't think yoga is necessarily going to win her this game, but she's very competitive. She's there to grow as a person. I think it's her smile that really just gets me. She's got this smile that just gives off really good energy. And I feel like she's just going to connect with a lot of people on the tribe here early on. And I feel like if there's someone that could play an under the radar type of game from the women's part, it could be her in this case. She could be someone that is forgotten early on. She's not physically the most dominant female out there. So I feel like all of those things potentially could count in her favor and could potentially make her go quite deep into this game. Like I said, I didn't expect me to connect with her because I'm not a vegan. Don't have anything against people that are vegan, but I love a braai. I love my meat, But she is someone that I think could potentially be a sleeper in this game. What do you think of Anisu, Riley?
Yeah, so it's kind of a crazy comparison here, but I'm looking at Anisu as someone like a Nora or a Debbie, but maybe just not as crazy. The reason why I compare her to Nora and Debbie is she's got so many jobs, so much experience outside of the game. So she's a doctor, a yoga teacher, a small business owner. I think she described herself as a vegan lifestyle entrepreneur in her cast video. So I think she's going to be someone that will last the whole game. She could be someone, I suppose, that does sit behind others. So I don't think, compared to some of the other women on this cast, I think going to be a lot more aggressive. I think Anisu is going to be someone that will sit back a little bit and maybe strike later in the game, it seems. But she is saying a lot about how Survivor's a mental game and you've got to outlast your opponents. You've got to be strong. You've got to be present. You've got to be mindful. And I suppose bringing those yoga lessons into the game of Survivor, much like Coach did in Turk and Chain's Heroes vs. Villains in South Pacific with his coach Chi. Bring that into Survivor. And it is a good way to build bonds, I think, on the beach, by bringing everyone together. You look at people like, as I said, Coach or Vetus, who having these lessons on the beach, and it's a good bonding moment. And it also, I think, gains more trust from other people as well if you're leading these sort of yoga instructions, because it's giving you an opportunity to bond closer with people, and people like your presence around camp. I mean, unless you absolutely hate yoga, which, I mean, if you're on the island, you've got to be doing something. So I feel like that aspect of it, being a yoga teacher, if she doesn't push it too strongly, and I'm not sure what the tribe makeup will be if she's on the same tribe as someone like Water, who again is another yoga teacher on this season. If there is that sort of dynamic, it might be a little bit angsty, but I feel like Anisu is just a very chill, like laid back person, and it won't really phase her too much. And she will be able to build those relationships. And I see her as someone like Sandra that will fly under the radar, kind of an anyone but me player, and maybe at the end she can get there and pull off a big move and get to the end, win the prize. But for me, I'm interested to see how she approaches the game and whether she does play a strategic game or just a social game. Because at the moment, it seems like she just wants to play a social game and outlast others and not, outplay, it seems.
Yeah, but let's not forget that, when you're a newer player to the game, and I don't know if she's been a big fan prior to the season or not, but if you're not a big player to the game, a lot of the times you do need to first gain that social capital and build good relationships first. I mean, we give Rob all the props for being this dominant winner in his season, but Rob didn't really make that many big moves until pretty close to the merge, when he started taking more control after he's built all those good bonds and relationships. And I do think that with Anisu, like you said, she's quite a chilled person in general. So I do think that her and Wada, potentially they could both connect around the fact that they both do yoga. And actually, I don't feel like there's going to be a competition there about who knows more about yoga and things like that. I feel like it's quite an inclusive community. I do know quite a few yogis myself. The one thing I do think for her is going to be a danger out there is the fact that she's a vegan, because a lot of the vegans that I know want to tell people that eat meat that they're not allowed to eat meat. And if she becomes one of those obnoxious people out there, giving people grief for wanting to kill a chicken and eat it, then she could be someone that gets in a lot of trouble early in the game here. So I think that's something that she needs to look out for. Now, we're going to move back to you, Riley, and you now have the next two picks. So you're starting off with a woman and then a man as well. Who do you have as your second man pick here?
All right. I'll start off with my woman, if that's all right. So I'm
Oh yeah,
going to
woman.
go
Yeah.
for Nicole. I'm going to go for Nicole here. Usually, I'm skeptical to place, a young, attractive female in the end, just because looking at US Survivor, especially with that poverty 2.0 stereotype, it's always a little bit of a question as to whether they'll go far in the game. But it does seem that Nicole is, really adamant to play, and she said in her casting video a lot she's going to be underestimated, and that's how she wants people to perceive her. I think that's a very good strategy to have in Survivor, is underplay your perception and play to how people view you. And if they underestimate you, play that way until the merge, and then you can strike later in the game. And she also mentioned in her video she's going to draw on other strengths and weaknesses and use that to her advantage. Which again, that's displaying a strong social game, wanting to look at how other people are interacting, and use that to her advantage potentially. If there's a little bit of a conflict in the camp, maybe it's arising from Anesu wanting to not cook the chicken. She could probably use that to her advantage and use that and kind of play the middle, I think, is what she's going to play. So, I mean, we did have Nicole as a runner-up for the last season of Survivor, being Island of Secrets. And I think that we could have another Nicole at Final Tribal Council this season as well. One thing I really did like about her video, actually, is she mentioned that she's a chameleon and she can adapt to different situations, sort of blend in. And as I said, I mean, playing a social game, that is kind of what you want to do, much like Sandra or a Parvati, someone that's really friendly and everyone's mates with. You kind of have one or two enemies, but you just blending into the camp and sitting back, letting everything happen around you, and then really playing that middle game and shifting to one side or the other, really where you want to go and what's going to bring you further in the game. So Nicole, I'm feeling really good on her. So hopefully she goes far in the game. Dino and Nicole, hopefully a final two deal there. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Nicole, I'm really confident with her.
Yeah, and listen, this is the first one where both me and you, well, I guess we both agreed on Dino as well. Dino was my second guy pick, and you've also chosen my second female pick here now on my own ranking. So I had her pretty high. I think she could do really well. She does say here that a lot of people perceive her as being a poppy, which is a South African word for being a little Barbie doll. So people think that she's just this little Barbie doll that wants to look nice, don't want to break her nails. She does seem to me like she's someone that is actually pretty strong and someone that will actually get down and dirty and play this game quite ruthlessly. I also, similar to you, got Parvati vibes from her, and I know that in the US, that type of role is kind of overplayed quite a lot. And as soon as people think that there's a Parvati-like person that plays the show, they go and target them immediately and vote them out. I think that in the Survivor South Africa sense, though, we haven't seen many players. In fact, I don't think we've seen any player play the Parvati strategy in Survivor South Africa yet. And if she does go down that road, she's quite an attractive young girl. If she flirts with some of the guys like her, it could take her deeper into the game. I did notice on her social media, though, it does look like she is taken. Sorry, boys, for those that are out there wondering if she's single. I think she's taken. So I don't know if she would play the game in such a way. I'm hoping that her morals don't go too far, but definitely lead people on a little bit in the game itself, because, I mean, the game is there to be played and to be won at the end of the day. And when I did my ranking, anybody that said that they were going to walk some moral high ground on the moves that they were going to take in the game, I don't rate their chances very high coming into this season. So I think it's a good pick there. You also now have the second pick here for the draft. And who else do you have in your team that you want to put in there?
All right, so I am going with someone. I'm not sure how high you are in this bloke, but for me, I think he's got a good chance at the game. Again, much like how I was saying with Dino, he reminds me of Mike Venter. I think Kieran is going to be another similar player that is really going to. He said he's going to come in without any strategic baggage, and that's really the best way to play Survivor, in my opinion, is go in without any preset plans and just see how it goes. Go with the flow, because I mean, you can't come into Survivor not knowing who you're playing with and just think that you're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and just tick off a list and go all the way to Final Tribal Council. It doesn't work like that. You have to be flexible, and that's what I think Kieran is going to be, a flexible player. He does have a background as a strategy consultant outside of the game, so he knows that it's in his daily life that he always has to think a couple of steps ahead. So he's playing a little bit of chess here. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes. On this season, though, it seems to be a much a younger cast. Everyone seems to be within that sort of 24 to 40 age range. I look at it kind of like Ghost Island, actually. It seems very similar in that not just the casting, but also the twist as well. So I think someone like Kieran, especially with the Immunity Island in play, and we'll talk about this later, obviously, when the season comes around, and discussing what this Immunity Island might have entail. I think if it's similar to Island of Secrets and there's advantages up there, I think he could be someone that kind of has the right mindset where he can say, I got offered two things, much like we were talking with Rob the other day, maybe misleading people a little bit and making them think that, he passed something up when actually he's got something in his pocket. So Kieran, for me, someone that I think could go far in the game, someone that's very flexible, which I think is a great trait to have in Survivor, and someone that's not going to lead, because coming off the back of the Secrets, with Rob playing such a dominant game, I think that's going to be what people are going after at the moment, is going to be strong leaders that are just taking the charge. And Kieran's someone that I think can just play the middle and really just wait his time and float to the end of the game, I think, but also make those big moves along the way when he needs to.
Yeah, so one of the things you didn't touch on here for Kieran, for me, was quite interesting. He said he's a super sarcastic person, he's quick-witted, and that some people might take that as him being rude. So it is going to be interesting to see if people get his sense of humor early in the game, and will that part of his personality be something that grades on people if they've been out there for 20 days without eating food, or 15 days or 3 days? I mean, I probably would get grumpy after 3 days of not eating food, let's be honest. But how's that going to come across, And that kind of makes me think of Tyson from Token Chains, because Tyson from Token Chains was like that. So will he be that kind of player? He does seem quite aware of what is required in the game to go far in this game and to have a good run at it. So I do think he could be a good player. He was my 5th pick for the men. The only thing with him that I'm a little bit afraid of with him going into the season is, will he be seen as someone that can't be trusted quite early? Because just his aura, something about him and the way that he talks would have made me not trust him immediately, and would have made me think, that this guy's got more going on behind there than a lot of other players. And I don't know if he's against me, will I be able to work with him? If he's close to me, maybe. I don't know. So, again, he's one of those players. I can see potential there. Will it play out on the island? I guess we'll have to wait and see how that sort of plays out on the island itself. Now, I believe that I'm going to be the next person here that needs to select someone. And I am still a bit in two minds here on who my next person will be, because it's between two men for me and who I want to go for here. But I think that, I'm going to go with my heart on this one, Riley. I'm just going to go with what I feel like. Which characters do I want to shout for when they're out there, And I don't know if this person's going to win the show, because they mentioned some players that they like. Two of those players remind me of them. But he didn't mention the more strategic one out of the three that are part of that archetype. So it makes me a little bit worried for him. But I am going to put Jason in as my next pick for the guys. Jason seems to be someone that is going to be very comfortable out there on the island. He seems to be someone that will be used to being in the wild. He's going to be very similar to the people that he idolizes, like your Joey Amazing, your Aussies. He didn't mention Malcolm. I'm hoping that he's more like Malcolm opposed to Joey or Aussie, because I feel like both Aussie and Joey weren't as good strategically in the game. But he does mention Sarah Lucina as well. So him respecting Sarah Lucina's game as someone that can play behind the scenes and make pretty cutthroat decisions, for me, seems to be pretty good. Now, he does say that he can be a devious person in his everyday life, so maybe he is someone that's going to bring a little bit of excitement and fun to the game. He believes that the game is all about mental, so if you can have your mental state right, you should be able to go quite far in the game. I feel comfortable with him. I think that he's going to be a physical threat out there, but like you said, maybe that physical threat, maybe the fact that he's going to be someone that's going to be living out there quite comfortably, potentially providing for them with the fish and things like that, could also make him a target here quite early on in the season. So what is your thoughts on Jason for this season?
Yeah, I think you put the nail in the head right there. When he compared himself to Joe and Aussie, I got a little bit skeptical as to how he'll go strategically. But he did say that he is going to be, ruthless, devious, cutthroat. So that does give me the impression that he will be, sort of this triple threat. Again, I come back to, what are people going to be thinking going into this season? And I think they look at Rob And Jason looks like someone that's going to dominate in challenges. He looks like someone that has a lot of strategy behind him. And I just feel like people are going to think that if he takes the leadership role, we've got to get him out of here right now. So I'm skeptical to say that he'll go far in the game. I do think he'll at least stay until the merge, but then early on in the season, he reminds me a little bit of Dante in that I think he's going to play maybe a little bit too hard out of the gate and just won't be able to build those right alliances. And also being a physical threat as well. That also puts a massive target on his back, and people are going to want to get rid of him. So for me, I'm skeptical of Jason. I think he's definitely going to make the merge unless something crazy happens. But I think he's going to be an entertaining character. I do have hopes for him, and yeah, being a challenge beast, and if he can bring that that strategic aspect as well into the game, I think it'll be really exciting. He does have the hallmarks for a great player, but as I said, I think the fact that he's a physical threat, it seems in Survivor South Africa, they're always the ones that go around the merge. They always want to get rid of the physical threats over the strategic threats. So I think he's going to be someone that will go early merge for me. But I mean, if he can pull off a couple of wins like Aussie did in Cook Islands and Terry in Panama and just go on a streak, he really could be a force to be reckoned with, especially if he does have that strategic backing and a couple of close people around him. So it'll be interesting to see just how he goes in terms of bringing players around him, creating alliances. Can he do it? Can he build enough trust with people to stay for the long haul in the game?
No, definitely. Now, we're moving in here to my next pick, which is going to be a girl. She will be my second girl pick here. And to be honest, you kind of made my decision a little bit easier here because I was kind of going back and forth between my second and third girl pick, and I wasn't sure who I was going to put in second and who I was going to put in third. Now, this person for me, she reminds me of Michelle from Australian Survivor quite a lot. I got Michelle vibes, and I like Michelle from Australian Survivor. I think she's a very good player. Obviously, in All-Stars, she got found out a bit earlier, but in her original season, I feel like this player will play a very similar game to that, and that is going to be Amy Eliasson. So she will be my next girl pick here on the board. She is someone that is a corporate lawyer, so clearly a smart cookie. She says that she wants to play from behind the scenes and get to know people first, minimize her threat level before she makes any assumptions about people, which I think is a good strategy when you go into this type of game, is to let other people first, see where the social dynamics are, see where you fit into that circle, and then move and shake and make deals from there. She looks like she is physically really fit. She's mentally quite strong. And the one thing for me, the one concern I had about her is that she applied for the show on a whim. She was at a braai, drinking some red wine, saw the ad came up, and she was like, yeah, I can do that, which makes it look like she's quite a spontaneous person. But if you look at her video, she came across as a lot more serious opposed to being spontaneous. So that's something that I find quite intriguing about her. I do think that as long as she finds her place within that group dynamic, I feel like someone like her could be doing really, really well in the game. I feel like, funny enough, for her to do well, if her and Nicole gets into the same tribe, I feel like they've got very opposite personalities and they might clash. So that could be a potential danger if they were to be on the same tribe. But if they were in separate tribes, I feel like either one of them could do pretty well, because I feel like both of them are going to fight for that dominant female spot on their tribe, where Anesu, who I've got as my first person here, I feel like she's not going to worry about being the dominant female figure there. She's going to let other people fight it out for the top spot. What is your thoughts on Amy, and how high did you have her in your rankings coming into this?
Yeah, Amy was one that I considered as my first female pick, actually. She was probably top 3 females for me. I do think, yeah, she has all the hallmarks for a strong Survivor player. And she did really emphasize playing that social game and how that's the most important aspect of the game. You've got to build relationships. I really did like how she started talking about being a slow burner and, you know, finding where she fits in the group before she starts making alliances and strategic moves. Sometimes that can bite you in the bum, like what we were talking about earlier in the season with Paul and Leanne on Saula. Not building those bonds on day one can sometimes bite you in the butt, and it really just depends on how it shakes out, how people are playing the game. Are people going to be, you know, running around making alliances to the final 2 on day one, or are they going to be kind of waiting? And I really think it comes down to how early on she's tested, because if you can't build those strong relationships early in the game, then she could be a target for the first couple votes at Tribal Council. But if she can build those relationships really strong and find someone to drift to early in the game, but not have a full-blown alliance and kind of be flexible in her social relationships, I think that's where she'll go strong. So I do see Amy as being a big player and someone that's going to last for the long haul in the game. I do worry, though, that her being a lawyer, if she says that, not being too big a Survivor super fan, it seems, after her comments in terms of applying for the show. If she doesn't reveal that she's a lawyer, that might put more of a target on her back as well, knowing she can argue away at things, especially if she plays a very social game as well and plays up this poverty sort of angle and building relationships with everyone. I do worry her downfall, especially because we have Mike as well. He was another lawyer on the tribe. So to see how that shakes out, because I mean, as we know, lawyers aren't really perceived too well either, and oftentimes people want to kind of play that down because they know that if they get the final tribal council, well, no one's going to take them because they'll just steamroll it. I mean, unless you're showing an Australian Survivor there.
No, 100%. And I believe we have got you coming in here now with your next female pick. This will be your second female pick. And then after your second female pick, you also get the opportunity to go and pick your third guy as well. So who do you have coming up here next on your end, Riley?
All right. When I was first looking at the photos, I thought, I don't see this person going far. But she did mention she's as ruthless as Sandra, and she plays killer social game like Sari. So I think that Therisa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I think that Therisa is going to play a very good game, much like a Sari. She's not the biggest physical threat, but if she can build those social relationships and kill them with kindness, I think she can go really far in the game. I do see her as being someone, especially in Survivor South Africa, it seems like these motherly figures are taken longer in the game, whereas in other versions of the show, they're kind of targeted at the beginning. So if she can make those sort of bonds, with it being a young cast as well, if she can kind of build those bonds, not so much as a motherly figure because she's 35 and the others are 24, but as this older sister, I suppose, and building strong relationships and not dictating anything too much, playing this anyone but me strategy like Sandra did in Pearl Islands and Heroes vs Villains. She's someone that I could see going far. As I said before, I think the targets this season are going to be those bigger guys like your Chappies and your Anellas, the guys that are leaders. They're going to go early, which means for Therisa, I think it gives her an opportunity to go deeper in the game. So yeah, really excited to see how she plays, and hopefully I'm right and she goes deep in the game.
Yeah, now Therisa is someone that I've been talking to some of my other super fan Survivor fans over in South Africa that really love the show, and specifically one of my good friends who runs a Facebook group for Survivor South Africa and worldwide Survivor in general. He's the admin there, and he absolutely loves Therisa. He tried to convince me to put her at #1 coming into this draft pick, and I see why he likes her. I like her as well. I want her to be the next Sari. To be honest, I would love to see that. I love the fact that she loves Sari and Sandra. She's very aware. Like one of the things that when I was talking to Pia not that long ago in our interview, she said that if you are someone that wants to go out there and play the show, look at who plays the game or who is the closest to you in personality type before you go out there and play the game, and try and replicate some of the things that they've done on the show. And I feel like Therisa coming into this season is someone that is very socially aware of who she is as a person. She understands physically that she's not going to be the most physically fit person going into the season. And she wants to break the stereotypes around people like her and people like her playing this show that hasn't won the show yet. So I love the fact that she wants to go out there. She wants a woman to win this season, which I found quite interesting that they put that in the video as well. Between me and you, I've got a feeling like we might see a woman win this season just because there's been 3 men now in a row in Survivor South Africa that have won it. I think that we could see a woman win this. I think that if Therisa can somehow sneak her way past the early game, and if she gets to the merge, I think she's laughing, to be honest. When she gets to the merge, I think she's good. My worry for Therisa, and I'm going to be very honest about where I had her on my rankings. I had her at #7 for the women, not because I don't think she can't play a good game. I think that she can play a really good game. I think she's really aware. I'm just really afraid for her in this early game. I've got a feeling that we're going to have 2 tribes going into the season because there's 20 people opposed to 21. It might break it into 3 tribes at a later stage. So maybe that's going to help her because there's going to be more people that can be targeted instead of her from the start. Because I do feel like with the previous season, having 3 tribes, the older people or the people that weren't so fit in the beginning, they were targeted a lot easier because there weren't as many people to choose from. But like you said, it is the Survivor South African version, and we've seen players like that get quite far in Survivor South Africa. So I don't hate that choice from you. I hope she does well. I really want her to be the next Sari, be the next Sandra. I just don't know if she will be able to do that. And with some of these big personalities, if they group together early on and they don't want people that hold them back in challenges, and if her tribe loses a couple of immunities, it's going to be interesting to see how she handles that, because Sari used to have that issue as well. Every season that Sari comes back, she's got that same target on her back, and she's always been able to get past that. So it'll be interesting to see if Therisa can live up to her idol's sort of gameplay when it comes to that. So, Riley, we're going to go into the next one here, which I believe... Sorry, you go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, with my next pick, I'm going to take Paul. Paul is a very social player, it seems. He works as an aftercare teacher. Unfortunately, I didn't get to find his video, so I'm not too sure how he comes across when he's speaking. But from reading his bio, at least, he does seem to be a very kind person. I worry, though, is that someone's going to let him down by not being willing to cut people in the end. It could be a little bit of a challenge for him. He also looks quite strong as well. So I think it's someone that, if he's not commanding a leadership role and just kind of sitting back and building strong bonds as opposed to leading the strategy, I think he's someone that could just stay for the long run, win a couple of immunities, and be someone at Tribal Council. I actually see Kieran and Paul, if they're on the right tribe, together. I see them kind of being in an alliance, hopefully. It'd be nice to see all my picks today in the final 10, but we'll wait to see how that goes. But no, he seems like someone that is going to be a very physical threat, but also a social player. He does play up this aspect of being very kind, which I think is something that's going to bode well for him in the game. And perhaps not being too aggressive too early on will work well for him. Maybe he can be too kind in survival, which can be a little bit of a pitfall for some people. I do see him going far in the game. He has described himself as single, very single in his bio, though. I'm not sure if there are any other single girls on the cast, but that could be something as well to think about, really, is if he finds a girl on the cast, could that paint a target on his back? From reading his bio, I'm not sure how big of a fan of the show he is. I'd hope that he's certainly aware of the target that's placed on showmancers. If not, though, that could be a little bit of a target on his back if he does happen to fall into something. So, yeah, Paul, really excited for him. And what a great shirt as well. Very out there. He's popping off the screen at the moment. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing him.
So it's interesting because I did not think you were going to put Paul this high coming into the game. Like some of the things that you mentioned in regards to Paul that I was concerned about as well is that he seems like he's someone that is too kind for this game. He's out there because he wants to be part of the social experiment of Survivor, which is something that I think is going to be interesting to see how he adapts to being in a game that is not about that social experiment that we used to see 20 years ago. It is now more moved into a cutthroat type of game where if you don't hit the ground running early on in the season, you might be finding yourself outside of the numbers. The things that I do like about Paul is I like the fact that he's a caring person. I like the fact that, like you said, he's single, very single, but I do think that with Survivor South Africa, they don't really cast a lot of single people on there to be in showmancers. I don't think it's a big part of what Survivor South Africa tries to do. So it'll be interesting to see if he does find someone out there that he connects with. I do think he's physically extremely fit. So I do think that there's going to be no risk for him being an early target in the game if he's not someone that's an explosive personality. And he does come across to not have a very explosive personality. He seems like an easygoing person that is just going to get along with a lot of people out there when he plays with them. So the reason that I was kind of 50-50 on him is because we haven't seen a video for him yet. So we don't actually know how he comes across when he speaks. So I was like, I had him really low, but the reason I had him really low is because he's a bit of a joker character for me coming into this season. I just don't know enough about him to put all of my faith sort of into him to actually go out there and do really well in the long run in the show. But we're going to move on to, I believe it's my pick next, Riley. Keep me on track here.
Yep.
Okay, so the next person that I need to select is a guy, and this is where we're getting towards the pointy end now. I do feel like there is a couple of people still left up for grabs here that potentially could be really good players. So I've got to really think about who the next person is that I think we might see a little bit of action from and someone that can do well. And I think that the person that I'm going to go with here is someone that I liked because I could relate to this person in regards to what they did when they went into lockdown because my regime was very similar to theirs. I'm going to go with Sean. And the reason that I'm going with Sean in this spot, he's the oldest guy, I believe, coming into the season. But, he's an Apex Legends fan, So, and us gamers, we've got to support other gamers coming into the show. He understands that you should leave your morals back at home. Don't bring it to the island when you're playing the game. He went into lockdown perfecting his cooking skills. I couldn't relate to that part. I'm a terrible cook, but I can relate to increasing my KD in Warzone. So he's increased his KD in Apex Legends during this time and also Fortnite. He seems like someone that is going to be very smart, streetwise, has got a lot of experience coming into this game. He's quite self-aware of who he is as a person, so he doesn't come across as being overly cocky. Who he reminded me of, Riley, funny enough, coming into the season was a very grounded Shane Powers from Panama Island. I got Shane Powers vibes from him, but more of a grounded Shane Powers, not the crazy Shane Powers that we saw out there that didn't have his cigarettes on him when he was playing the game. And I think that Shane is potentially, if he can find his feet here early in the game, get a couple of people to align with, I think that he could go quite deep into this game because I think, like he said, he's going to go out there to look for idols and things like that. Hopefully he doesn't get caught immediately doing that, but he seems like a big fan of the show. I believe he's applied for it quite a lot of times. And I also like the fact that he's an animal lover, so those are the things I can relate to him. Like I said, I want to have people on my team that I can shout for. So Shane is my next pick here as the third man in my team. What do you think of Shane, Riley?
Now, I'm not a video gamer, but I think KD rate, that is kill-death ratio, right? And I think that's something he could do really well in the game, especially if you get some advantages. He reminds me just of an older Jark, I suppose, just in how excited he is to be there and getting all these advantages in his game. And that seems like what he's going to play with. To see how he uses them and if he can not paint too much of a target on his back, because we know that if you run out into the bushes on day one and hunt for an idol, that's going to put a target straight in your back. If he can kind of sit back for the first couple of tribal councils and just let things play out, build relationships, that's going to work better for him, I think, than just playing an advantage-heavy game. Because, you can't get to the end after 39 days just by playing idols. It really isn't possible. I look at him as maybe a little bit of a Devon's character, especially with this sort of idol comparison. He does seem someone that's going to be very exuberant, larger than life, which is great fun to see. Always love a big character on our screen. And also being the oldest guy in the cast as well, though. Only 40 years old, which is, quite young to be the oldest on the cast. But no, seeing how he goes, playing with those advantages, it might put a target on his back, but hopefully he can build those relationships early on where he can have those sort of parachutes to fall back on so that he doesn't have too much of a target painted on him.
No, I agree with you. So I have got the next pick here. And while you were talking, I was frantically going about it, looking at my list. And I am going to go off and change what I had as my next person here. And I hope that it doesn't end up coming back to bite me here. But I'm hoping that you won't choose the next girl that I want outside of this girl. But I'm going to keep with the theme of having people in my group that I want to shout for when they're out there. Every week I want to come into these recaps with you, Riley, and I want to be like, man, I'm shouting really hard for these guys that I've got in my team. So I'm going to change my pick here. I had this girl ranked probably below the spot that I'm going to pick her in now, but something draws me to this person. Something makes me want to shout for them when they're going to be out there. And I'm going to go in and I am going to select Kieran as my next person in my team. So Kieran, she's someone that is highly empathetic. She's someone that says that she hopes that she doesn't come across as being someone that is weak and too caring within the game to the viewers, just because she's someone that is quite nurturing by nature. So she's hoping that she doesn't come across as being too passive while she's out there. She's got a very interesting job in being a volunteer firefighter, or on some places I've seen she's also got fun employment as her occupation. So I don't know which one it is. I think on the video I saw volunteer firefighter, and then on some of the blogs I saw fun employment. But I feel like she does what her heart desire tells her to do, and she goes and does that. But a lady like her who goes out there and does a job like a firefighter type of job, She's someone that's not going to be afraid of taking risks. She's someone, I want to believe that we can have another Tom Westman, we can have another Jeremy Collins come on the show, win it for the firefighters out there. I really want to shout for her in that sense. And I really respect the work that firefighters do, especially in South Africa. Similar to Australia, we get a lot of wildfires because of how hot it is out there. And they do a very needed job in South Africa. So I really want to shout for her based on that. But I also like how she looks at the game through the eyes of Bruce Lee, and where she says, you've got to be like water. You've got to adapt to the cup that you're in, become the shape, become the form of the cup. She says that, you've got to shape like water into the object that you are poured into. And I like that. And that she's born to be water within deep ocean. So that's where she thrives. She thrives in deep ocean. So these kind of deep things that she says there, I really like that. I like her as a person. The one thing that I'm scared about for her, Riley, going into this one is that she is someone that she's born, I believe, in Taiwan. She lived in Cape Town for quite a while, and then now recently she's been living in Hong Kong. So one of the things that I'm personally afraid of when Leroux Botha finally gives me the call to come and play the show, how would people look at it? If I was to go there and I'm this South African that has lived in New Zealand for so long, do they still look at me as an expat, not a true South African? Do I still get the inner dynamics and the inner workings of culturally what is going on currently in my country? So, I could be wrong. She could still be living in South Africa and only recently moved to Hong Kong. But that's the little thing that I'm afraid of for her. How well is she going to gel in with the people around her? And will they accept her as being one of their own when she's already lived outside of the country for quite a while? So those are like my big takeaways on Ki Hun. How do you feel about Ki Hun coming into this season?
I'm surprised you picked Ki Hun because you've been saying all along you don't want people that are going to just be dragged along and loyal and not make big moves. And that's something she did bring up. She said, I'm highly empathetic, kind, and fiercely loyal, but she doesn't want to be perceived as being not aggressive. Now, I think that's a very dangerous thing to be saying before the game, because if you're saying that you're going to play a very loyal, passive game and you want people to view you as aggressive, I don't think that's going to work for you. So it'll be interesting to see how she kind of balances it out. We haven't had a female firefighter winner before. I think the only other female firefighter we've had in Survivor is Erin Collins from Survivor Thailand. Stephanie Dill from Survivor Thailand. So yeah, to see a firefighter on the show, they always seem to do well, especially with people like Jeremy and Tom Westman. So yeah, hopefully she does well. But for my sake, I'm hoping that she goes early and that her game is viewed as not aggressive, so she doesn't get the $1 million rand in the end.
That's fair enough. And listen, like I said, what I've done here is I have definitely gone with my heart over my head, and I just want her to do well. Let's be honest, both me and you don't know how this thing is going to shake out. Within the first week, we're probably going to look at our picks and we're probably going to think to ourselves, wow, how wrong were we to pick so-and-so as our 8th or 7th seed pick in the whole game, because they might be the best players out there. But like I said, I'm going to go down the line of who do I want to shout for, and I feel like she's going to be a likable person. I don't know if she'll win the game, but definitely at this point, I'm picking people that I want to see do well in this game. Now, we are going to go back to you here, and you've got the next 2 picks, starting with a female pick first. Who do you have as your next female pick?
All right, I'm going to go with Marisha Duplessis. Now, she reminds me of someone like a Tony Tebbett almost. She seems to have a very strong-willed mind, and Tony Tebbett from Survivor Philippines, of course. She seems to be very strong-willed, very outgoing. So to see how she kind of adapts that to the island will be entertaining. I think she could be a little bit too explosive at times, and maybe rub people the wrong way, which I'm skeptical of. But I do look at her as someone that could build an alliance with someone like maybe Sean. I think they'd probably bounce well off each other, being 2 very aggressive players in the game. I think they would work well together. Unfortunately, Sean's on the other team, so I hope she cuts him at some stage there. But no, it would be very good to see Marisha playing a very aggressive game. I think it's very rare that we see women play a very aggressive strategic game in Survivor, because they usually get targeted early on for being the Party 2.0, as we discussed before with Nicole there. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how Marisha goes. Hopefully she can do well and she makes it to the merge, because I think if she does, and she has the right people around her, she can go deep if she's playing such a strong strategic game and being very driven and aggressive.
Now, with Marisha, I did consider her as one of the people that I wanted. She wasn't the person I was going to select next, so you haven't chosen who I'm going to select next, which I was like, fingers crossed when I went for Kieran. I was like, hopefully Riley doesn't get this next person. But I do think that Marisha is going to be extremely strong. We've got, and I don't want to spoil too much for anyone that hasn't seen this yet, but we've got a new Australian Big Brother showing at the moment, and not giving anything away with placements, but we've got a farmer's wife out there playing Australian Big Brother as well. And this farmer's wife is just killing it in a lot of the challenges, because what a lot of people don't know about people that are out on the farms, they do a lot of the work themselves. So like Marisha being out there on a farm, being a farmer's wife, she's someone that's helping her husband on the farm do a lot of the work. So I feel like she's got that farmer's strength coming into this. She's built like an absolute tank. So I don't think there's any chance that people would want to vote her out too early in the game. If she can keep her personality under wraps. The thing that made me a little bit worried about her is the fact that she said that she does have a fiery personality. So maybe she's going to be like a Steffi type of character in that sense, but Steffi did pretty well in the season regardless of how fiery her personality was. So maybe in the South African season, that's okay. I am still worried that she could rub the wrong people the wrong way too early here with having very strong and outspoken opinions about things. But I think that, if she doesn't come across as being too strong early in the game, I feel like people would be an absolute fool to vote her out early. She seems like someone that is going to help people win challenges, but she will be, in my opinion, a very early target after the merge as a physical threat in the game, because I think that she could probably beat all of the women and half of the men in this cast in any kind of physical challenge. So that is a very dangerous place to be at for a woman coming into this season. But I do like strong women. I would love to see her win the show, even though she's not on my team. At the end of the day, it is all about having a great show out there, and I do want her to do well. The one thing I also wanted to add with her is that if this was the challenge, I would have picked her as my #1 spot. I feel like if she did a show like the challenge, she would eat the competition for breakfast, dinner, and lunch if she was out there. So not a bad choice by you. I don't know if I would have picked her next, but I can see the appeal in picking her at this stage. We are sort of in the middle part of our draft here at the moment. So we're going to go into our next one, which would be, again, coming over to you. You will have to choose a male now in this spot.
Yeah, I'm going to go down alphabetically and go for the next pick on the board, which will be Mike. Now, the thing I'm worried about with Mike is, one, he's a lawyer. As I mentioned before, with Amy, that could be something that if it's made known, it might put a target on his back. Although I feel like Mike is the sort of player that will go into the game knowing the strategy and knowing how to play it off. I think he will do really well just in terms of playing a similar game to Sean, I think, in finding idols, making big moves. I do worry, though, how is he going to go making relationships? As I said before, it's a very young cast. A lot of the players seem to be around that 24 to 27 age range. He's 32, which is only a little bit older, 5 years. I do wonder, though, being a city slicker, though, again, was something that really blared out to me. I mean, being in the jungle, I mean, we've seen people before, take that and just succeed in the game. So it isn't too big of a shock for him. But to see how he plays as a little bit more of a neurotic player, maybe I see him as being a more cool-headed David Wright, potentially. I'm thinking David Wright later in the game, not David Wright pre-merge. I hope that Mike won't have too many of those meltdowns and covering his ears because of the bamboo being split. I do view Mike as someone that could go, far in the game, but I do worry again, is he going to come across too strong early on, play a very strategic, aggressive game, and will that be his downfall? Hopefully not, but looking forward to seeing Mike in the season.
Yeah, so for me, Mike is someone similar to Paul. I didn't see the video for him. I've got no feeling of what his personality type is like. I've only been able to see his bio. He kind of reminded me on his bio of a player that I really love over in the US, Stephen Fishback, who was also this city slicker who went out there to play and then teamed up with the farmer guy and JT and ended up running a lot of that season and being quite a big strategical mastermind in that season. I am a little bit worried about Mike because I don't know if he's a fan. I couldn't see anywhere if he was a fan of the show. I know that he prepared for the show by tying knots, and he's still not very good at tying knots. I don't have much of an opinion positive or negative on Mike here. I feel like you chose him a little bit too high because I feel like there's better players on the board that you didn't select at this point, in my opinion. But what do I know? Like I said, it's quite early days here, but I definitely will be taking away one of these better players, in my opinion, who I think is going to be a better player, just based off the limited of information that I've seen so far. So the next person that I want to take off the board here is going to be Renier as my next pick. And Renier, to me, comes across as someone who's going to be very similar to Jark. I think that he's a Jark copy coming into the season. He's someone that seems to be a big fan of the show. He says that he's been sitting there with his wife for the last 5 years. In fact, I probably should have selected him even a bit higher in hindsight, thinking about this. But I'm glad that I get him in this spot. He's watched it for 5 years. He's hypothesized what he would do in certain situations. So I do have to fear, as being someone that's a really big fan of the show, will he outplay himself? Will he overplay? Will he make the mistake that Jark made early by playing an idol maybe incorrectly too early on, or going out and looking for an idol too early, or overplaying his hand, being seen as someone you can't trust too early? But I get good vibes from him. I don't know why. He reminds me of Spencer in Kagiyan, because he's someone that has got that brains to him. He's someone that's going to be smart. He's a chemical engineer, so clearly not a dummy. He's someone who's also physically really fit. Like he's got a very good physique. I've seen on his social platform, social media, Instagram, he does a lot of trail running and things like that. So he's clearly got a lot of stamina. And for some other reason, I think he's going to be a gamer. I think if they don't get rid of him early on, I'm really excited because there's a few people in this season that are going to play a very explosive game. I haven't gone for, in my team, I feel like none of my guys are going to be like middle-of-the-road guys. They're all gamers so far. What do you think of Renier over on your side, Riley? Where would you put him? And what do you think of my observations? I saw you nodding your head when I said Spencer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a Spencer carbon copy almost. He does seem to be very strategically aware, a big fan of the show, and also physical. So that will be something that will work in his favor if he gets to the merge, obviously, having that chance to win those immunity challenges. I'm skeptical of picking him that high, Chris, and that's why I haven't picked him ultimately, is because I felt as though he's going to be someone that's going to flame out early. Unfortunately, I look at him, I don't know if it's just the hair, but Jacob Derwin vibes, that's what I'm getting. Being such a big fan of the show, coming in, Immunity Island, similar to Ghost Island. He's going to go to Immunity Island on episode 1. He's going to come back, pour all the rice into his sock, which again, being a chemical engineer, similar to Jutea, being a nuclear engineer, I think there's a lot of bad things going for him, unfortunately. I do hope, though, as with everyone, I mean, we don't have much information at all with any of these people, so we're really not sure. But to me, just from his video, he seemed to come across as very overexcited, very aggressive, and I think that's something that's actually going to be his downfall in the end. I do view him, unfortunately, not so much in line with Spencer, but more in line with Jacob, and I especially look at how Jark was perceived in Survivor Islander Secrets. I think there might be a knock against Renier, and he might go home early just for being perceived as a big gamer. I do wonder, though, who's going to get the idol first if Renier and Sean are on the same tribe. You did say that Renier is a trail runner, so he might be quicker off the gate, but perhaps Sean, being a video gamer, he might know where to look for all these little treasure chests. So we'll wait and see. But I don't have high hopes for Renier, unfortunately, for him. I think he is going to be a flame out early on. Just in my opinion, I think he's just going to be too aggressive, which might be his downfall.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going for the all or nothing strategy here with my players, because the way I look at it, Riley, is if I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys here that are all or nothing, hopefully half of them make it far and actually play a big game, and I want someone in my team that is willing to play a big game. And I feel like Renier could be one of those people. Like you said, sometimes if you've waited your whole life to play the game and you've watched it for 20 years, when you're out there playing the game, that can count against you because you've been thinking about it for so many years. What would you do in certain situations? And you end up going into the game preempting moves when you probably should just be adapting to the situation that is in front of you. But I do think that for some other reason, I'm getting Spencer vibes from Renier, and that's why I'm going for him. I think that if he can channel his inner Spencer when he's playing this game, he could go quite far. And again, Riley, both me and you don't have that much information on the players going into it. So, I mean, anything could happen here at the end of the day. So my next pick is going to be to go for a girl on this pick or in the draft. And I was going to pick this girl one step higher, And I was like 50-50 even now looking at that, because we've got 4 girls still on the board here. I do worry about one thing that she said throughout this, and that is the fact that she does have a moral compass in the game. I really fear for players that have got a moral compass, because when you draw the line somewhere and you say, this is what I'm not willing to do to win the game, I feel like very rarely do you actually end up winning the game. But I'm still going to go for her because she is a fan of the show, and I'm going to take Carla Gubb off the table here. And what I like about her is the fact that she is socially really aware. She understands that this is a social game. She doesn't like deceiving and lying, and it doesn't speak to her moral compass. But when you're out there playing to win the 1 million rand, sometimes things change. And I think that if she's around enough people that can sort of show her, like, listen, this is a game for a lot of money, she could change that. What I like about her, and again, I hate the word super fan, because what is a super fan? You know, everybody out there these days classify themselves as being a super fan, and that's one thing we forgot about Renier. Renier, if you listen to this, I chose you, so I challenge you to a trivia competition in our next trivia for Reality Pop, because you said you could beat anyone. So I hope you're listening to this and you're taking us on. And when you look at Carla, she's a super fan. She's someone that wants to go out there and play the game. She understands the intricacies of the game. And I feel like compared to some of the players that I haven't selected yet, who hasn't seen the show again, she might have a leg up against some of them. I do think that she might struggle if she falls into the bottom. I don't know if she's a hustler. I don't know if she can work her way strategically back up into a good alliance. So I fear for her if she doesn't get in with the right people at the start of the game. What do you think of Carla Gubb?
So the sirens are blaring for me, Chris. I'm getting big Katinka vibes at the moment. I think obviously older than Katinka was on Survivor South Africa, Philippines, but she does seem like someone that you mentioned there. The moral compass is going to come into it, and she might not be as willing to make big moves. Perhaps just like Katinka's downfall in Philippines with Werner on the beach there, loose lips might sink ships. I hope for her sake she goes well in the game, but I just see her as being someone that doesn't have that ability to deceive, doesn't have that ability to lie. She doesn't want to do it. And I think that's going to be downfall in Survivor. You have to be making moves, Chris. You have to be making moves, you have to be cutting people's throats, because otherwise, I mean, what's your path going to be to the end? You can't be a passenger, I suppose, to take a leaf out of Rick Devons's book there. You can't be a passenger. You need to be making moves of your own, because if you're going to get filed for tribal council, ultimately, if you haven't done anything all game, there's no rhyme or reason for you to get the million rand. So unfortunately, I don't see her going too far in the game.
Now, you got to look at it this way, Riley. I am balancing my team out because I've only got really big movers here when it comes to quite a few of my players. So I need a couple of players that won't naturally be the person that's going to go out there and just shake the ship around. So that's why I'm going for Carla, and I hope she doesn't disappoint me. I hope the fact that she's been a fan for a long time, she seemed like she wasn't an over-the-top excited fan that hasn't played the game for 20 years, and she's finally out there and she wants to make a million moves like Renier. She seems like she's a little bit more low-key about the fact that she's a big fan of the show. She said that the fact that she's a super fan, she's going to go undercover and be an undercover super fan. So I think those are all very good things and a good strategy going into the game. So hopefully she lands on the right side of the votes here. And I do think that her personality type, she, again, to me, comes across as someone that, similar to Anesu, would be happy to be the second girl in charge. She doesn't necessarily need to be the top girl. She won't fight for that spot between a Nicole and forgot the name of the other blonde girl that I chose early on in the game. Amy, that's the one. So Amy and Nicole, I think, is going to fight for that previous Nicole of Island of the Secrets type of spot to be the main person, the main girl. But I feel like with her, she's going to fill in a little bit easier and she's going to blend a little bit easier with the rest of the girls there. So I believe we're coming back to you now for the next pick here, Riley, and you have got to pick a girl and then a guy for your next two picks. Who would you like to pick of those remaining players that are on the board currently?
No, you know what, Chris? I was looking at the board, what we've got right there. Nicole was my number one pick. Then Therisa was my second. Marisha being my third. And the fourth on my list was actually Pinty. Now, Pinty has said she is a Janet of all trades. I think a nod there to Janet Carbon from Island of the Idols and what a great game she played. If she can replicate that and play a great social game, a great strategic game, I don't think it matters too much about the physical if you're someone like that and you're just building strong relationships around camp. Although she does look like someone that could actually compete in challenges. I do look forward to seeing her. She's a freelancer, so she's willing to go all sort of different ways. So I do wonder that could work in her advantage. Really looking forward to seeing how she goes there. And she has mentioned in her bio there, meeting new people and having meaningful, honest interactions is one of her favorite things. And that's exactly what you need in Survivor. You need to be, willing to meet new people, willing to make alliances, and build those strong relationships. So very much, she mentioned Janet in there, and I'm getting strong Janet vibe from Pinty. I do actually think, though, compared to some of my other women picks, I think she could go further in the game, just because I see her being a target early in the game, potentially due to her potential weakness in challenges. Again, we haven't seen a video for Pinty, so I'm not too sure how physically strong she is. But I view that as being her only downfall. Otherwise, I can really see her going deep in the game to the top 6, much like a Janet did, and potentially going all the way to the $1 million rand. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she goes. If she can play a strong social game and also bring the strategy element to it as well, I can see her pulling out an ardent nullifier and getting maybe one of your first picks like Chappies out of the game. I'd love to see her really have fun, go out there and play a strategic game and see how she goes.
No, 100%. Worth Playing For says, hello. Hello, Worth Playing For. It's nice to have you here on the stream. If you are aware or not aware, the Survivor South Africa Immunity Island season is starting 3rd of June. First Survivor season to finally be live again after such a long off season. So we're doing our player draft and cast assessment at the same time here. And Jark has just chosen Pinty as his next person there in his team. Now, sorry, Jark, I mean Riley. Riley, so looking at this currently, you have gone for Pinty. Pinty is someone that I didn't have too high coming into this. The reason that I didn't have Pinty too high coming into this is because I feel like she is someone that's going to struggle in the early game with challenges, potentially, and she's someone that could get voted out earlier. But I do actually think Pinty potentially, because she's a jack of all trades, and she says that she's not a master at anything, but she does a lot of things better than most people, that she potentially could be someone that could easily fill in and easily interact with different people within the game. And I feel like she comes across as socially someone that's going to be a bit of a chameleon. I know other people have said that they were going to be a chameleon coming into this season, but I feel like she could definitely be that chameleon. She doesn't talk it up, but I can see her easily interacting with the guys. I can see her easily interacting with the girls. Again, she's not going to fight to become the top dominant female on the cast. She's not going to fight for that. And I feel like she could get along with a lot of guys as well. So she reminds me of the girl who got 2nd place in Survivor Season 6. What was her name again? The lady that got 2nd there?
John.
John. So she reminds me of John, kind of similar type of personality. If she gets deep enough in the game, I think that she could potentially do really well here. So not a bad choice. We don't have many people left in our cast assessment here in our draft. So I think that you made a pretty decent choice there. So you've got the next male pick here. So that would leave me with one person left after this, one male that I can potentially get.
All right, so when I make this pick, I do want to say that I acknowledge that Anella is going to be a strong player. I think he will. If he wasn't coming off the back of Island of Secrets, I think he'd do quite well. But looking at how Rob was perceived in the season before, as I said many times in this video, it's going to be a massive target to be a strong player and a social player as well. So for me, I'm going with Tyson here. He has said, though, in his video that he's stubborn, unorthodox, and charming. Now, one word there really gets those alarm bells ringing for me, and that's stubborn. I hope he's not too set on his ways because, I mean, in Survivor, you have to be flexible. You really need to pick your different paths, and you can't ultimately just go one way. You've really got to, work your way around and try and make these relationships, cut deals, and you can't really ride that wave the whole way and think that you're going to be the one calling the shots. Although charming, though, that is a good word to describe him. Hopefully he can go in, make those strong relationships. But yeah, the thing I worry with Tyson is he's going to be very commanding. I hope he doesn't, but he has said that he'll backstop anyone if he needs to, and that adapting is his biggest strength. So I don't know why he's saying he's stubborn when he's also saying that he's adaptable. A little bit of a juxtaposition there. So hopefully he can, build those strong social bonds and be adaptable in that way. And he doesn't, and he's not too stubborn in terms of his strategic play, because we don't want someone like Rob from the previous season, Island Secrets, coming in and just dominating the game, because I don't think that's going to go very well for him at all. But yeah, hopefully he plays well and he's adaptable and can make these strong relationships and go deep in the game. Although, yeah, with these last two men on the board, I was skeptical to choose either one, just because I think they're going to be targets coming off the back of last season. Tyson, though, is the one that I can see having more of a chance, just because he seems like he's more approachable than Anela. And when we discuss Anela, I'm going to mention another player from Islander Secrets who reminds me of him. But yeah, Tyson for me, he's someone that if he can come in, build strong relationships, who's someone that will do well, just make sure he doesn't be too commanding and he kind of takes a little bit of a step back and does take that leadership role straight away.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Looking at Tyson for me coming into this season, I had him ranked as one of my lowest players. He was 9th of the men that I had on the rankings, and the reason for that is because Tyson is the youngest guy coming into this season. A lot of the specific cast is in their 30s, so I do feel like maybe he won't connect with people as easily. But in saying that, you know, Rob was 30, and I believe Mike Fenter was 21 coming into it. But I don't think that Tyson has the temperament that Mike had coming into the season. I do think Tyson, potentially for me, everything you said about the Renier potentially overplaying his hand too early and going out early. I feel like Tyson is that kind of player that he's a ball of energy waiting to get out there and play a very cutthroat game. He said that, you know, 10 out of 10 times he will speak his mind. And in Survivor, to speak your mind is not a good thing always. Sometimes you've got to learn to bite your tongue. So I feel like he could be controversial. I feel like he could step on people's toes maybe too early on. He could be a PK in the making. There's definitely, I could see some similarities to a PK potentially to him. But I feel like overall, him coming into the show saying that he wanted to be in film and TV industry and he's doing it to gain experience while being on the biggest show on TV tells me that he isn't necessarily the biggest Survivor fan, but he's doing it for other motives, to become famous or get a TV role or something like that. I don't know if he's fully prepared for the game that is ahead of him coming into the season. The positives for him, though, is he does look like he's physically fit and in good shape. So I feel like he won't be in any danger early on in the season when it comes to potentially people voting him out because he's a weakness in that aspect of the game. Now, we're going back into our draft, and we really are at the pointy end now. You've made the next choice for me, but I would have chosen him above Tyson personally in any case. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that I get him here at the end. And it's going to be Anela that will come to me. And Anela is someone that, when I looked at him at first, I thought to myself, Anela is someone that I would be really good friends with. He seems like someone I would get along with. Firstly, he's a Gemini. I'm a Gemini, you know, so I understand the whole thing about him saying that he could be very deliberate and elaborate and measured in his approach and also quite careless at the same time, which is kind of contradicting. But if you think about it, Geminis have got split personalities. You know, there are times where they're very happy, times that they're not so happy. They are extroverted, sometimes introverted. So I appreciate all of those things. The fact that he's a rugby coach, someone that understands you need to get along with different people. You got to strategically put them in a team to work together to get a common goal, put certain people in certain positions to compensate for their weaknesses while looking at other people and putting them in positions of strength. I feel like that's something that will help him a lot. I love the fact that Survivor South Africa is finally going to have a coach play the game. I hope he calls himself coach when he's out there. We need our own version of coach to play Survivor South Africa. But I do think I know who you're going to say he reminds you of from Island of Secrets. He reminds me of Felix. I feel like if he goes down the wrong road here, Felix sounded like he was quite a good guy that a lot of people got along with, but Felix got split up from his alliance quite early on, and then he just wasn't able to adapt to new people and get along with them, and he had a very strong personality. I think that Anela might have a very strong personality. I don't know how well he's going to bend and shape to get in with other people. I hope that Anela, for his sake in the game, connects very early on with someone like Tyson, who's also a very young guy. I think Anela is the second youngest guy coming into this season. He's a absolute physical beast. We now know who we have in the trailer running on the open field. It's Anela who's running, and that's seen. A lot of people thought it was Rob when they had the early season speculations that it could be an all-star season a couple of months ago. But I think that overall, he's this low in my estimation because I don't know if people are going to let him get very deep in the game, but I could very easily see him do well if he's not like Felix, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do worry about Anela, and that is exactly what I had in mind, is Felix. I just see him as being someone that is going to sit in camp and just call the shots. And that's what a worry for him is. He's going to be, being the rugby coach. I feel like he's not going to take on as much of that teamwork emphasis. I think he's going to take on more of the leadership role. And when I first saw him straight away and read his bio, I thought Felix. When I watched his video, I thought, okay, maybe he's a bit of a Rob Bentele. Then that worried me even more, knowing that Rob just won the previous season. As I said before, that's going to be a massive target. People are going to be looking at getting the strong guys and strategic guys out. And I think Anella's going to be someone that will want to take the leadership role no matter what. And I don't think that'll be looked at too kindly on this season. I just think he's going to be, because we've got a lot of strong personalities on this season. And I think Anella's probably one of the strongest. And I think he can rub people the wrong way. So I do worry about that. He has said he's charming, but I just see him as being a very strong character that I don't think is going to rub very well with the others. So I do worry for him. He was my 10th male pick. Ultimately, I just feel like he's going to be someone, I think, that will almost go in the exact same position as Felix. I'm calling it right now. I think he's going to survive the swap, survive the first swap. If there's a second swap, he's going to be screwed by numbers, and his old tribe mates will betray him just because he's too strong around camp and trying to call the shots when he doesn't have the power. I think that's how he's going to go out ultimately.
Yeah. Now, going into this last pick, you'd think it'd be quite easy to choose who I'm going to go for here, but it's not. I feel like there's positives and negatives to both of these players that are still left in the game. And listen, it would be so funny if we get to the end of the season, Riley, and these two end up being the final two, because I could easily see all of our perceptions of what we think is going to go on in the show being completely wrong of the limited information that we have so far for the season. But I think I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to continue to put people into my group that I think and hope will do well. And I'm going to go here for Sintoni Engelbrecht in the next spot. And the reason that I'm going to go for her is that she is someone that is a non-survivor looking person going out there, similar to Therisa. She wants to prove that someone like her could win this game. She looks like she's got an extremely colorful personality. Someone that reminds me kind of Rupert, like it could be a female version of Rupert here on Survivor South Africa potentially. So I don't know how well she's going to do strategically. But one of the things that I found really interesting here is that if the women don't get rid of her early in the game, they may have some trouble on their hands because she wants to align with the men. She thinks that men are easier to work with than females in general. So it's going to be interesting to see if she gets the opportunity here to align with a couple of strong younger guys that works with her. But I have a feeling she might have a colorful personality, which potentially could count against her if she doesn't fit in really well with the people that she's there in her tribe with. She believes in karma. She's got a moral code. Those are the things that made me not want to choose her higher than this. Obviously, is our last pick here. I do feel like there's a lot of things that she won't do to win the game. So I don't have high hopes for her to go all the way and win this game. She wants to kill people with kindness while she's out there. How will she do in the beginning when, you've got to have a lot of physical prowess to do really well in those challenges early on? Will she get to the merge? If she gets to the merge, she probably will do well. But there's a lot of marks for me on Sintoni, and I still pip her over Wada here. I think Wada could be physically a lot stronger than her and probably stay longer in the game. But I have my reasons for why I'm going this way, and we'll talk about that when you talk about Wada as your last pick. What do you think of Sintoni coming into this game, Riley?
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up between Santoni and Wada as to who's going to go further in the game. I do like your pick of Santoni, though. I probably would have gone with her over Wada. And I do like that she has said, she wants to align with the men. She wants to play with them, recognizing they'll be the stronger players. I don't fault you for making that comparison with Rupert. I mean, the tie-dye shirt is right there, so fair enough. But I do worry, though, for someone like Santoni, someone like Wada, someone like Therisa, the biggest flaw for them will be early in the game where people want to get rid of the perceived weakest challenge player. So I think that, Santoni, unfortunately, being the older woman, she might be one of the first to go. She might be cannon fodder, which sucks. I hate seeing people not have an opportunity to play just because they go to first tribal council and they get voted out. I do see that as being Santoni's path, but I mean, if she wants to cause chaos behind the scenes and be kind to people's faces, I would love to see that. So I would like to see her go far in the game, but I just don't see it happening with the way it plays out. Usually, you get the older woman that goes first. Unfortunately, like Remi Edge of Extinction, So unless there's someone that's really grading and getting under people's skins, I can see Santoni being a very early boot there, which is unfortunate. But I do think that my final pick, obviously, I've been left with Water there. I do feel similar in that sense, but I think that Water probably has a better chance at making the merge, just because she said she's underestimated. And I think, I mean, you've got an SU on your team. Water is a yoga instructor as well. I'm assuming they'll be on different tribes. Hopefully, have one yoga instructor in each tribe. She does seem very chilled, laid back, which is what you want around camp. And you do want someone that's going to, I suppose, coach, just like Anella will be doing. But I feel like she'll be more of a calm coach. I made a comparison with Pinty and Janet before. More so, Pinty and Janet, it was in terms of Janet having that three-faceted game, that social, strategic, and physical. Whereas with Water, I just look at her calming presence around camp. I believe she is the second oldest after Sean. I mean, still 39, very young on Survivor, but I mean, on this season, it's going to be being the older member there. I see her as being, someone that can take care of the people like Anella and Tyson, potentially kind of bring them down a little bit and calm them down, I think is the motherly role she'll be playing on this season. I think she will be more of a physical threat than someone like Santoni, being a yoga instructor. She actually does look pretty strong, though. I think she can hold her own in some of those endurance challenges. I could honestly see her pulling out some immunity wins if she does get that far in the game. I do have hopes for her as a player. But yeah, as I said with Santoni, it's going to be a question of will she survive the pre-merge? I think that's the biggest question, because you do want cannon fodder early in the game. And when you look at the people on the board on day one, it's first perceptions, and you're going to say, it's going to be Santoni or Water. They're going to be one of the first to go, unfortunately. I hope it doesn't play out that way, but I mean, you can never really tell what happens. And it does depend largely on who was on your tribe as well, and whether there are those grading personalities.
100%. Now, for those of you that are watching this live, get your opinions into the chat. Let us know who you think we're completely sleeping on. What do you think of our current rankings of these players? If you look from the left to the right for both of us, those are our picks, who we think are our number one seed for each team, to the ones on the right who are our last seeds going into this one. So please let us know how wrong we have it. But we feel pretty confident about these teams. I did want to touch on Water here as well. The reason that with Water, I didn't go into it too early on here, with her being a bit higher. I do think she's physically going to be fit. I do have a problem with people that put absolutes into their sort of thinking before they go and play the game. She doesn't want to be the mommy. Well, sometimes when you play Survivor, you have to be the mommy. You know, like if people are putting you into that category, be the mommy. You know, be whoever they want you to be. Some of the other girls that we've got ranked higher here, they're aware of what people are going to perceive them to be as, and they're going to play up into those perceptions. So I feel like Water putting a limitation out there for herself to say, I won't want to be that mommy, to me, I see as a negative based off one video that I've seen of her so far. The other thing here, the positive is that, you know, she's worked as a journalist for over 20 years. So she's used to working with people from all walks of life, you know, and talking and communicating with them. So I feel like socially she might make some good connections. She seems to be a very successful person. She's got quite a big following on social media. She does yoga and things online. So I feel like if you are on her wrong side, you might get that fiery part of her personality come out, which she talks about. So again, that could go either way. If she is there with people that she gets along with really well, it might not be an issue. She might rub people the wrong way. She does seem very sure of who she is as a person. She says that she's got over, 40 years on this planet. So she wants to take all of that experience and bring that into the game. So that could be interesting. I do think physically she could do really well if she is given the opportunity here to go deep into the game. She's a question mark for me, Riley, but I do feel like, in my opinion, we probably could have selected her a bit higher. Like when I look at my list here, it sadly didn't work in a way where she came to me, but I actually had Water as high as 6 in my rankings. And for some other reason, it just didn't play out that way. And when it came down between Santoni, who I had as 9, I actually changed it at the last minute. And I went for Santoni because as I started putting this team together, I just started realizing I've got a lot of personalities on my team, and I'm gonna lean into that, because we don't really know what's going to happen out there on the season. But I want people that I can shout for and really enjoy sort of seeing play this game. Now, Riley, if you could steal one pick off the board, if you had the power to veto one and one woman on my team, who would be the 2 players on my team that you would love to steal and bring over to your team? Not that you're going to get them, but I'd love to know what your opinion is.
I'm confident enough in my own team, Chris, honestly. But no, for me, I think your strongest males there are maybe a Sean or a Jason. I'd probably look at Sean as probably being the better pick. I think you got him in a good spot there in the middle of the pack, and he was someone I was actually considering around that time. He probably would have been my pick over Mike there and taking that slot as the 4th man on my tribe. I think he's a good pick. Amy as well, the one you got directly before him, is I think someone that also is going to be a good player. Although I feel as though not to be too cocky, and we don't know how it'll play out. I do feel as though my 5 women are going to do really well. And I actually, now that we've talked about Water a little bit more, I do see her as being a potential dark horse in this game. I do think she could go quite deep. So I'm happy with where I'm at. But yeah, what about you? I'm sure you want to take everyone off there.
It's hard to believe I don't, but there's a few players on your team that I do think that you selected really well. Like, I agree with you on both Dino and Nicole being your number 1 and 2 picks there. I think that Dino is someone that can go really far in this game because, like I said before, he's not going to take the lead. He's going to be the 2nd or 3rd person in line, and a lot of people are not going to see him as a threat early on in the game. And I feel like he's the right kind of fan that won't overplay his hand. I know that having followed some of Dino's socials, that he's really connected within the Survivor South Africa circles. Like, he's already rubbed shoulders with a lot of Survivor players that have played the game. So I feel like they would have all given him good advice over the years before going out there and playing the game. Nicole, for me, I think that she is very aware of how she comes across, and she's going to play into people's stereotypes around that. As long as she doesn't end up really being a poppy, being a Barbie doll that goes out there and is afraid of breaking her nails, I feel like she could potentially do really well. Her biggest competition, like I said, is going to be someone in my team, like an Amy, potentially. Her and Amy are in the same tribe, and I'd love to be wrong and they become best friends, but I feel like they're going to compete for that top spot in their tribe to be the dominant female person there. If I had to look at anybody else in your team, I really want, I wouldn't choose that person as high as you did, but I really want Therisa to do really well. And I do think, we slept on Water throughout this draft, and somehow she slipped into this last spot. I think you got a really good last pick there as well. But overall, I'm super excited about this season, Riley. I'm just really happy that we finally will have some Survivor, some new content on our channel that we can talk about. And I'm looking forward to getting into it with you. So for everybody that's listening out there that got to this part of the video, thank you for listening. Myself and Riley will be doing a recap of every single episode throughout the next season for Survivor South Africa. We're currently doing a rewatch of Survivor Island of Secrets, and we're continuing our rewatch of that tomorrow. We're doing another episode there. I believe it's episodes 14 and 15. That's the next 2 that we'll be doing in that recap.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so two really exciting episodes to come, and also some big blindsides and big reactions at camp. So really looking forward to that one. And yeah, less than a month now. I think it's 3 weeks. I think just about 3.5 weeks until we get Survivor back on our screen. So if you haven't watched Survivor South Africa before, I mean, I think it is, honestly, I rank it after US as being the 2nd best international version over Australian Survivor, which some people might not believe that, me being Australian, of course. I really do think highly of South African Survivor, and I think it will do. This season will be quite entertaining. It has been so long since we've had Survivor on our screen, so any Survivor is a great Survivor season, maybe with the exception of Redemption Island, but that's a story for another day. I'm really looking forward to it. Less than a month to go now. And yeah, Survivor's back. Great cast, a lot of great picks there, and I really do feel confident that really any of those picks could go deep in the game. And I do look forward to seeing how they play, and actually whether our interpretations of them were right. Obviously, we didn't get to base this off too much information, so to see how they play will be really good to see, and also the tribe dynamics as well, to see what they're like, and whether some of these players clash is going to be the big question. As you mentioned there with Amy and Nicole, will they be on the same tribe? Will they clash and play for that queen bee sort of role? It will be interesting to see how that shakes out. And also, I mean, we'll discuss this later on the track before the season, but Immunity Island, seeing how that plays out as a twist, and how that will affect the game as well. I'm really looking forward to it. Great cast, great twist. Survivor's back. Bring it on, Chris. Let's go.
Yeah, really excited for it. So like Riley said, we will have another podcast that will come up where we will talk about what we expect to see this season. So we'll do like a pre-season assessment of what we think is going to happen, and we'll have some hot takes. Like Riley might bring in 5 sort of things that he thinks will happen in the season and things we should look out for. I might do 5 myself. We'll probably by that time would have seen more of the actual cast. So we'll revisit our draft picks at that point when we've had more opportunity to see more videos from them and everything like that going into the season. And we'll see if Riley is still so happy about his team. He feels pretty confident going into the season that he's got the winning team here. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Riley throughout the season. And we also may have some previous players. We've got Australian Survivor players that have reached out and said they might want to jump on the podcast as a guest potentially to talk about Survivor South Africa. We've had previous Survivor South Africa players that have said they might want to come on and talk about it. So who knows? We might have some special guests throughout the season as well. So if you like this content, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell if you want to be notified about when we're going to go live next. We appreciate all the support. We're heading closer to 700 subscribers. We've got a special event coming up if we hit 1,000 subscribers. Also, Riley hasn't had the opportunity to mention this, but he does Survivor content on his own channel called Snuffed, where he, at this point, mainly looks into the US Survivor and does really good video content about why different people have won the show. And he talks about any other topics that he fancies on that channel. And it's a really good channel. He's also getting quite close to 1,000 subscribers on his channel right now. So please give him a subscription as well. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for dropping in today for this podcast. See ya.